Hello everyone, I Assistant Professor Pragati Shetty from Department of Microbiology, KJ Somaya College. In this online lecture, we will study about the cultivation of the viruses. So as we know, the viruses are obligate parasites, obligate intracellular parasite, and therefore they will require any host for their multiplication and growth. They can't be grow or they can't be multiply on their own. Unlike the bacteria can multiply on their own, right? It is not necessary for bacteria to have a certain host for its growth and development. But in the viruses should must be present inside the host for its growth and development. Now we will see in this online lecture what are the types of the viruses cultivation and what medias we can use, such as the animal inoculation, then tissue culture and the cell cultures, right? So now we will see one by one. So here are the techniques in the cultivating and identifying animal viruses. So now viruses require living cells as their medium, right? So as I mentioned, the viruses require host cell. So that will be their media. And in the bacterial growth, if we have to check the growth of the bacteria, then we will grow bacteria on some agar, nutrient agar or any respective agar. So that will be the medium for bacterial growth. So in similar way, for the viruses, the tissue cultures or the host living cells will be the medium for viruses. Now in that we have two types, the in vivo and in vitro. Okay, so in vivo means what? Inside the body, inside a living system, it's called as in vivo. In vitro, in laboratory. So in vivo, the laboratory bred animals and the embryonic bird tissues are used to grow the and multiply the viruses. Whereas in vitro, that means in the laboratory places, we can grow viruses on the cell culture methods or the tissue culture methods. Now the primary purpose for the virus cultivation. Now this is important, as we should know that why we are cultivating viruses, right? What is the aim behind that? So to isolate and identify the infectious pathogen, right? The clinical samples, viruses, then it is very essential in the research in producing the vaccines, right? For vaccine productions, for research on the viruses, on a particular viral proteins. So for that also we have to require the virus, the isolated viral cell, and for the isolation we have to grow the virus on the medias. All right, then we will see. Okay, so we should also, if we want to isolate the virus for genetic study or its genetic structure, its mode of transmission, then its mode of infection, right? Then pathogenesis, we have to study the pathogenesis, the pathogenicity, right? Or the how much viral concentration is required, or how much viral particles are sufficient enough to cause a infection into the host cell. So this every such properties we study, or we want to study, then we have to grow the virus first, and for that growth, for that cultivation of the viruses, we can do that process with the help of the certain different various techniques. So that we will study first. So now the methods for the virus cultivation, as I mentioned, there are the namely three methods. Inoculation of virus into animals, such as the guinea pigs, rabbits, rats, right? Then second is the inoculation of viruses into the embryonated eggs. In the embryonated eggs, it will include the cavities, the different cavity, then the amniotic cavity, right, onto the allantoic cavity, like that. And the third one will be the tissue culture or the cell line culture. Okay, so now we will see one by one. The first one, that is the animal inoculation. So in that, the viruses will be inoculated into the animal model, right, in the laboratories. Now, viruses which are not cultivated in the embryonated egg or the cultures, tissue cultures, are cultivated in the laboratory animals, and the animals that are present for these studies or for these experiments are the guinea pig, then hamsters, mice, rabbits are most commonly used, right? Then the selected animals should be healthy, right, and they should not be suffering from any mild little infection. Also, they should be completely healthy and free from any communicable diseases. Then mice are most commonly used, okay, because the rate of growth of the viruses in the mice are rapid, okay. Less than 48 hours old mice we have to use, okay, a very newborn mice we use for the viral cultivation. Then mice are susceptible to the Tagotoga viruses and the Coxsackie virus, which are inoculated by the intracerebral and the intranasal route, okay. Now, in the virus cultivation only, after we inoculate the virus into the animal, okay, say we have inoculated the our virus, desired virus, into the animal body, the laboratory animal. Now we have to, the animals are observed for any growth change, right, and if the virus is present, then virus will cause infection in that animal, and depending on the symptoms for that infection, we will be able to determine or differentiate the virus growth, and therefore the animals we are using are should be free from every disease, okay. They should be completely healthy, so that any symptoms will be occur on their body, that will be the only because of this virus. All right, then the virus is isolated and purified from the tissue of that animal. Then live inoculation was first used on the human volunteers for study of the yellow fever viruses. So very long back ago, the humans are also used for this testing, but now it is not permeable, it is not allowed for to use the humans for the testing, so we used the animals, and animals also we have to take the permissions in case of the animals, okay, from the governor authorities to use them as our laboratory bred animals. Okay, so now, as I mentioned, the laboratory animals play essential roles in the viral pathogenesis. Then the animals we use, you can see here the monkeys, then mice, rabbits, guinea pigs, ferrets are used widely for cultivating the viruses, okay. Then this is about the animal cultures. In the later on, we will see that how we can identify or differentiate the virus. The next method for the viral cultivation or the cultivation of the viruses is the inoculation into the embryonated egg. Okay, so in this inoculation of the eggs, now we know the embryonated egg is most widely used to cultivate the viruses, and it is the most convenient and very cheap method that is available for the virus inoculation, and that is why it is most widely used. Now, in the animal inoculation or in the egg inoculation, in the embryonated eggs, the virus can be cultivated into the allantoic cavity than the amniotic cavity. So as I mentioned earlier, there are different parts on the embryonated eggs in which we can cultivate the specific amount of the virus culture, right, and then we have to observe for the desired characteristic or the symptoms which can be used to distinguish the virus properties. Alright, so now this inoculation of the embryonated egg was first used in the 1931 for the virus cultivation. Okay, then the process of the cultivation of the viruses in embryonated eggs depends on the type of the egg which is used. Alright, now the viruses are inoculated into the chick embryo of 7 to 12 days old. Now this can be the conditions required for using of the embryonated egg or the egg inoculation. So if we want to inoculate the virus into the egg, then we have to take that egg or use the egg which is 7 to 12 days old chick embryo, right? And then after that, for inoculation, eggs are first prepared for the cultivation. Okay, then after the cultivation preparation, the shell surface is first disinfected. Now we have to inoculate the virus onto the egg. So the outer surface of the egg should be sterilized and should not contain any of the germs or the microorganisms present, so that the contamination should not be present, right? And therefore we have to disinfect the outer surface of the egg. Then we have to prepare that egg for the cultivation. Okay, now we can disinfect with the use of the iodine. Okay, and then penetrate it with a small sterile drill. Now with the drill we will make a certain spot where we have to inoculate, and then we will inoculate the virus onto that embryonated egg. After inoculation, the opening is sealed with the gelatin or the paraffin and incubated eggs at 36 degrees Celsius for 2 to 3 days. Now for inoculation, the injection or the drill will be spotted a very minute, a very tiny spot, just like the syringe. It can inoculate using a syringe. Alright, and then after inoculation, that spot is sealed with the help of the gelatin or the paraffin, and the eggs then incubated at 36 degrees Celsius for 2 to 3 days. Then after the inoculation and incubation of the eggs with the viruses, now the egg is broken and the virus is isolated from the tissue of the egg. Okay, then viral growth and multiplication in the egg embryo is indicated by the death of the embryo by embryo cell damage or by the formation of the typical pocks or lesions on the egg membranes. So these are some of the properties of the viruses which will be appear if the virus is really present in the sample, right? And if the virus is present, then what will happen? Then the embryo will be dead, right? Or the certain lesions will be appear due to the viral infection, or the cells of the egg will be damaged. So depending upon these properties, we can able to differentiate the we can say that the virus is present. Then viruses can be cultivated in the various parts of the eggs, like the chorioallantoic membrane, then allantoic cavity, amniotic sac, and the yolk sac. Now that we will see in the next slide. Now this is about the egg inoculation. We are studying now the egg inoculation. Now in the picture you can see here are the different parts, various parts on the egg where we can inoculate our sample. Alright, so first if we look into the structure of the embryonated egg, which is 7 to 12 days old, okay, and that first the outer membrane will be the shell, which we have to disinfect with the iodine, right? After the shell, there will become the membrane called as the chorioallantoic membrane. You can see there they have labeled the blue color line. The blue color membrane is called as the chorioallantoic membrane. After that, there will be the allantoic cavity. Okay, then allantoic cavity is present, and then into that we have the yolk sac. Okay, the egg yolk will be there, the yolk sac. Then after that there is the embryo. You can see, right, that amniotic cavity is there, and into that amniotic cavity the embryo is present. All right, and then we have the albumin present just beneath the yolk sac, okay, or just after the allantoic cavity. And there is the shell membrane and the air sac. Okay, so now if we have to inoculate on such places, now say if we have to inoculate on the amniotic cavity, now how we will able to determine, or how we will able to know that where, on which side of the egg the amniotic cavity is present. So for this also there is one simple procedure or simple method technique is used. Now we have to see, or we have to observe that egg in the presence of the red light, or the most probably the yellow color light, so that yellow or white color under the background of the very bright surface, such that the air sac will be distinguishedly observed. Okay, and then we can see the proper air space into the egg. If you observe a normal egg which is inoculated, or after the 7 to 12 days, that egg will be observed like this. If you observe the egg under the presence of the very bright surface or very bright light, then we can able to distinguish, or we can able to mark the amniotic cavities and the air sac. So depending upon the air sac, now we know where is the air sac is present, so accordingly now we can able to do the further inoculation, right? So because the after the air sac there will be the embryo, right, there will be the amniotic cavity, the chorioallantoic membrane, and then we have to mark with a marker the place where we want to inoculate, and in that place, in that spot, we have to just inoculate using the syringe. After inoculation, we have to seal that place, or seal that spot using the glycerine or the paraffin. All right, and then we have to incubate that inoculated egg for 36 degrees Celsius for 2 to 3 days, so that the embryo is able to develop, and then we will able to differentiate the viral growth depending on the symptoms, or the infection, or the cell damage, or the death of the embryo. All right, now the chorioallantoic membrane inoculation, you can see that is on the topmost, okay, on the chorioallantoic membrane. Then amniotic inoculation can be done in the amniotic fluid, yolk sac inoculation on the egg yolk, and the allantoic inoculation on the allantoic cavities. So these are certain routes, or these are the various parts of the embryonated egg where we are able to inoculate our virus for cultivating. Now in this picture only you can see what type of virus can be inoculated at which place of the egg. So starting with the HSV, that is the herpes simplex virus, then pox virus and the sarcoma virus can be inoculated into the chorioallantoic membrane. Alright, then influenza and mumps virus can be inoculated into the amniotic inoculation. Amniotic cavity, amniotic fluid is present where the embryo is. Alright, then the yolk sac inoculation we can do for herpes simplex virus also. Then allantoic inoculation, in that we can inoculate the influenza virus, then mumps virus, Newcastle disease virus and the avian adenoviruses. Right, adenovirus we can inoculate. Now this inoculation helps the researchers or the scientists to study the viral properties, to study the virus characteristics, that how symptoms and what are the symptoms of that particular virus or virus genetic structure, right? The virus mode of the replication or its pathogenicity, its pathogenesis inside the host cell. This every property we can study using the cultivation of these viruses. Now, as I say, it is the simplest method of the growth and the cultivation, multiplication of these viruses. It is inoculated for cultivation of some viruses and some bacteria, right? Along with the viruses, we can also cultivate some of the bacteria. Now, as we know, the Rickettsia and the Chlamydia, these are the group of the very special bacteria which requires the obligate parasite. They are also called as the parasite, obligate intracellular parasite, because they also require a host for their growth. They will not grow on their own. Therefore, we can inoculate this special group of the bacteria called as the Chlamydia and the Rickettsia into this animal tissue cultures, right? Then the immune interference mechanism can be detected in the most of the avian viruses, right? Then the third type, now it is the second type, this was the second, that is the egg inoculation. Now we will study third one, that is the tissue culture. In the tissue culture we have two, cell line culture and the tissue cultures. All right, now the cultivation of the tissue or the organ for the growth of the viruses, all right, that is we used the tissues or we cultivate the tissues or the organs for growing the viruses. Now in this also we have three types of the tissue cultures. First one is the organ culture, where the virus will be growing into the organs. Second, explant cultures. In that, certain explant, the particular explant of a tissue will be used for growing the virus. Okay. Then cell culture, which is most widely used. Okay. In that we use certain cell lines for the viral growth. Then in the organ cultures, these are mainly used for highly specialized parasites of certain organs. Okay, we know every parasite or every virus has their own site of infection. Now organ culture is used for those parasites whose site of infection or the site of transmission will be on the specific organ. For example, the tracheal ring culture is done for isolation of the coronaviruses. Okay. Then second is the explant culture. In that, this method is basically very rarely used, explant. In that we use the fragments of the tissues that can be grown as the explant in the plasma clots. Alright, and then third we will having the cell culture, and these are most commonly used, most widely used for viral growth and to study the properties of the viruses. In that also we have the cell line cultures, and in the cell line we have three types of the cell line: primary, secondary and the continuous cell line cultures. Now we will see what are the types of the cell cultures are present. So based on the origin and the chromosomal property of the tissues cultures, those are divided into the three types. Okay, based on its growth, its type of the growth and the origin, the culture, cell cultures has been described or has been distributed into the three types. First one is the primary cell culture. Now what is the primary cell cultures? These are basically normal cells freshly taken from the animals or the human body. They are able to grow only for a limited time and cannot be maintained in the serial culture. These are normal cells, okay? And this can be inoculated from the animals and the host human body. They are able to grow for only limited period of time and they cannot be maintained for a very longer duration. So we have to preserve the virus, then we cannot use the primary cell culture because they cannot be remained maintained for serial cultures, right? Then they are mostly used for the primary isolation of viruses and production of the vaccines. For vaccine production and for primary isolation of the viruses, they are most commonly used. For example, what type of tissues we can use in the primary cell cultures? For example, the monkey kidneys cell culture, then the human embryonic kidney, chick embryo cell cultures. This cell cultures, this type of the tissues we can use as the primary cell culture. These are the normal cells which are freshly inoculated from the man's body, human's body, or the animal's body, right? Then this cannot be maintained for very longer duration for serial culture purpose. These are mostly used for primary isolation of the viruses and for vaccine production. Then we will see the second type of the culture, which is the diploid cell culture. Okay, also can be called as the semi-continuous cell cultures or the cell lines. Then in that, this culture, these cells are the diploid cells, right? As the name says, these are the diploid cell cultures. Then these cells will be having the diploid in nature. They are diploid and contain the same number of chromosomes as the parent cells. Alright, and therefore they are called as the semi-continuous and the diploid cell cultures because these cells are diploid and therefore they can have same number of chromosome. As we know, in the diploid cells the equal number of the chromosome are present in every cell, right? So they will have the same number of chromosome as the parent cell, right? Then they can be subcultured up to 50 times. This is a very good number as compared to the primary cell lines or the primary cell cultures where we cannot get subcultured it. We can just use it once. Okay. Whereas the diploid cell lines can be subcultured up to 50 times by serial transfer or serial subculture. Then they are used for the isolating of some fastidious viruses and also they can be used for the viral vaccine production. Okay. Now what are the examples of the diploid cell culture? So it will include the human embryonic lung strain, rhesus embryonic cell strain. Right. Now in the diploid one, it will have the diploid cells. It will have the equal number of chromosomes in each cell as the compared to the parent cell, right? Similar number of chromosomes, and therefore at starting we have mentioned that these cell lines are differentiated based on its chromosomal activity, right? Therefore the diploid name means that it will have diploid chromosome. It will have the same number of chromosomes as the parent cell. Then next they can be subcultured up to 50 times for serial culture and the serial transfer from one diploid to the another diploid cultures cell lines. Okay. Although due to the continuous subculturing, the cell strain can may lost, right? Then they are used for isolation of the viruses which are fastidious in nature. Alright, and they can also be used for the vaccine production. Just like the primary cell lines, they can also be used as the for for vaccine production, right? Example will include in the diploid cell cultures are the human embryonic lung strain and the rhesus embryo cell strain. Okay, now the third one, that is the continuous cell cultures or the continuous cell lines. So in this, which type of the cells we can use? We can use the cancer cells. Those are the continuous cell lines, right? Now as we know, the cancer cells are continuous cell lines. Therefore, they can be used as the continuous cell cultures. They can be serially cultured and so named as continuous cell lines, right? Then they can be maintained either by serial subculture or by storing in a deep freeze at minus 70 degrees Celsius. Due to derivation from cancer cells, they are not useful for vaccine production, right? So just like the previous two, that is the primary and the diploid cell cultures, tissue culture, this continuous cell cultures are cannot be used for vaccine production. All right, then example will include the HeLa cell lines, which are most commonly used. All right, this can be easy for the maintenance of the virus and can be stored also when can store at the minus 70 degree Celsius. Then example will include the HeLa cell line, that is the human carcinoma of the cervix cell line. Then the HEP, that is the human epithelioma of the larynx cell line. And the BHK21, that is the baby hamster kidney cell line. These are the examples for continuous cell lines. This we saw in the types of the tissue cultures, right? In the tissue cultures, we have three types: organ culture, then explant culture, and the cell culture. And in the cell culture, again we have distributed the cell culture into three types. Okay, organ culture and explant culture plus cell cultures are types of tissue cultures. And under the cell cultures, we have three types, namely the primary cell culture, then the diploid cell culture, plus the continuous cell lines. Okay, then we have to detect. Now we have successfully isolated the virus, or we have successfully inoculated the virus, and we have to check the virus growth, right? Then we can study that, or we can know that, determine that, depending on the physical properties or some damage in the cells, right? So this we will see in the next lecture. In this online lecture, we have studied the virus cultivation, why to use the virus cultivation, what are the advantages of the virus cultivation, then what type of methods or what are the types of the cultivation of the viruses. In that we studied three types. First one is the animal inoculation, right? Animal inoculation. Then the second one is the egg inoculation. After egg inoculation, we studied the tissue culture. In the tissue culture also we have various types, right? I hope you understood this online lecture. If you have any doubt regarding this, please ask in the comment section. Thank you for watching.